Welcome back to the Champagne on Ice podcast presented by the Field of 68. It is a great day to be talking some Illinois hoops. The Illini go 2-0. This past week, Brad Underwood moves to 8-0 against Juwan Howard on Tuesday night. And then Brad Underwood gets his first win at the Xfinity Center in College Park, Maryland, which was the only place that he had yet to win as the head coach of Illinois. Finally, Illinois beats Maryland on Saturday. We'll talk about both those games. Illinois also makes an appearance in the NCAA Tournament Committee's early bracket reveal, so we'll get to that as well. I'm Kyle Tausk, joined as always by Mike Farmer. Mike, how you feeling coming off a solid 2-0 week for the Illini?
I'm feeling good. I'm feeling relieved. Like the Michigan game wasn't really in question at any point, but you get down to the end of that Maryland game, it's a little bit dicey. They get that fast break towards the end, but Illinois comes through, they pull it out, had some big plays down the stretch. Just happy to be 2-0 this week.
Yeah, definitely. It did feel a little bit for a minute there like a repeat of Michigan State a week ago there at Maryland, where it was just all going to fall apart on the road. Credit Illinois, though, they pick up a big win on the road. As of this second, it's a quad one win. Maryland is literally exactly 75th in the net, so that should be an interesting teeter back and forth the rest of the year. Maybe Illini fans should be rooting for the Terps the rest of the way, but yeah, big road win there. We can kind of talk both games. I mean, Michigan, that's just a completely dead team. Illinois did what they should have done. What I was calling for, let's not just squeak out of here with a hard-fought victory. 30 points. They're up 37 when they took the starters out. And Brad Underwood continues to own that program. But then Saturday, big win, a game that was very important. Probably your toughest game until March on paper at Maryland. And you go in there and you finally get that monkey off your back against the Terps. What stood out to you from just this week in general, or especially that road win against Maryland yesterday?
I think overall, as we've been talking about the past couple of weeks, Illinois offense just continues to be dominant. Could have put up like 120 on Michigan if you kept the starters in, but they got taken out with 8 minutes or so left, which of course had to happen. But 85 points at Maryland, that's a really good defensive team. Still gave up 80 or defensively to Maryland, which is a concern. I'm sure we'll talk about a bit again in this podcast this week. But overall, I think you look at the Maryland game mainly, and you look at the late game execution. You look at Terrence Shannon continues to be really good. He had averaging 29 points this week, just back to that All-American status. I don't think that's even in question anymore. He's really back to his full self. Just some great contributions from guys in the Maryland game. Coleman Hawkins played pretty well. Damask played pretty well towards the end. Harmon makes a couple clutch plays towards the end of the game. So I really think just offensively, the team continues to look dominant. Defensively, still some struggles for sure. But overall, you get the late game execution finally, and you move to 2-0 this week, and you look good in the Big Ten standings. You look good as a top 16 team, as the committee listed us on Saturday. Just overall, a great week for Illinois.
Definitely. I will say real quick, as we're recording this, about a little after 1 o'clock on Sunday, the Ohio State Buckeyes have the lead over Purdue as the start of the second half, 35-30. So I'll have my eyes on that one. I got that one on here in the corner of my eye. If probably be done recording before this one goes final, we'll probably be done recording. But hey, we'll maybe have to have a conversation about Big Ten scenarios if it comes to that. But keep you updated on that one. Obviously, this will release way after this is over, so we're not really going to mention it much. But yeah, back to what you were saying. Totally agree. I think the biggest storyline from at Maryland was you closed out a game late. There's been some late game struggles heading into that one. For a second there, it did look like Michigan State all over again, where Illinois took about a 7-point lead with about 7 minutes left. Maryland, a little flurry to tie it with about 5 minutes left, and Illinois had about a 3-minute scoring drought there where they had some rough possessions. But give them credit, they actually found a way to close this game out. And I thought, for one, obviously you got buckets when you needed to. Damask had a big bucket. Harmon had a big bucket. Coleman Hawkins had an and one in transition on a play that actually, by the way, was the play of the game. Not by Coleman, by Marcus Damask getting back on a run out for Jameer Young that would have given Maryland the lead late. Marcus Damask goes up vertical, contests. Harmon does a nice job getting back to rebound, and Coleman Hawkins had an and one on the other end. Then Terrence Shannon Jr. got to the foul line a couple times late to close the game out as well. But defensively, I agree. I think as a whole, still some concern, especially in the first half against Maryland on defense. Felt like they were living in the paint. Felt like Jameer Young was getting whatever he wanted in the paint, even some other guys. Illinois did try some different things defensively, and we can talk about that a little more in depth. But what I will say is that when it came down to crunch time and when it mattered most, they did get the stops they needed, which you couldn't say against Michigan State, you couldn't say against Nebraska, you couldn't say against Northwestern. You could say it on Saturday. Illinois got stops, forced Jameer Young into some tougher mid-range jump shots, which is exactly where you want him to be shooting those shots from, knowing how explosive he's been, knowing how easily he can get downhill and get to the basket. For Terrence Shannon and Illinois' drop coverage in general, they're late to force him into some of those tougher mid-range shots that he wasn't able to make. I thought was a heck of a job and exactly what you wanted to see, and they were able to get the stops they needed. And it was really nice to see them close out a tight game late because that had been a real concern here. And if that one had played out just like Michigan State had, boy, I'd be really concerned about just the fact that, man, if you get towards March, you get into the postseason, and this team's in a tie game with 5 minutes left, I'm not going to have any confidence that they can close one out. Instead, they go to Maryland, a place that, as Coleman Hawkins said after the game, they'd been getting like 1,000 fans there every night, but they got 17,000 when Illinois showed up. So they were fired up for it. Illinois went in and closed out a game in a pretty good environment there, even though Maryland's not in the tournament picture. I thought that was a huge step in the right direction.
It's crazy. I mean, the last, you want to say 7, 8 minutes of that game felt exactly like the Michigan State game up until the Jameer Young fast break. Damas gets the stop. Harmon gets the rebound, throws it up to Coleman, gets the dunk and one. It's just crazy how much one play can really change the course of the game, maybe change the course of your season if like something drastic happened. But sometimes that's all you need. One stop, transition, layup, transition, dunk. You get fouled on it, gets you 3 points. Just a massive 5 point swing in the course of like 10 seconds in a really close game. But yeah, I totally agree. I think Illinois did have some really key stops on Jameer Young towards the end of the game. But I mean, the rest of the game, I would say I'm concerned because he puts up, I don't know his exact line, 28, 9, and 6. I'd say that's concerning still, but he did shoot 8 for 23. I think we did get some key stops towards the end, like you mentioned. Um, but I'm concerned about Maryland putting up 80 points as a whole. Julian Reese, good player for sure. We did get him in foul trouble at some point towards the end of the game, but 18 and 11, Dante Scott gets injured before the game and still puts up 17 on you. The rest of the team didn't really do much, but that's kind of been the story of Maryland's season. Guys just don't hit wide open threes. They don't make layups, just basic stuff like that. So I think Illinois did a decent job on the rest of the team, but I would have liked to see them key in more on Jameer Young. I know we blitzed him a couple times off screens. We doubled him a couple times, stuff like that. And it seemed to work. Like, I'm sure we'll talk about that in a bit, but that stuff seemed to work. So I just say I'm confused when Luke Goody's switched on to Jameer Young with 8 minutes left in the game. Like, Damask wasn't really getting too many stops defensively, but guys like Terrence Shannon and maybe Coleman, when he switched on to Jameer Young, they continue to get stops. They're really consistent defensively, it seems like, compared to some of these other options like Luke Goody and some other guys. So it's just interesting. Illinois still has some things to work on, but offensively, you can't just discredit how good Illinois has been offensively. I think they're top 5 on KenPom offensive efficiency now at this point in the season. Just probably the best offensive Illinois team I've seen in my lifetime. I know they mentioned the D Brown, Darren Williams 2004 or 5 team was like similar statistically in terms of points per game, points per possession, stuff like that. So just really great to see because that team had national championship caliber metrics. They did make the national championship, could have won it. I wasn't really a huge Illinois fan back then, but just great to see stuff like that in terms of stats comparing to teams from 20 years ago that went on crazy runs. So I think Illinois has the makeup of a team that could go on a run in March. I think you would probably agree with that too. I think most Illinois fans would. Still some things to figure out defensively, who's matching up with who's in the game, late in games, who's closing out teams on the road, stuff like that. But Illinois did have a good late game performance in this one, and I think that's definitely something to build on.
Yeah, I mean, the formula didn't change at all this week. We knew that Illinois' offense is one of the best in the country, and there's going to be games where their offense just wins and it's better than another team's offense. I felt like that was kind of what happened against Maryland. I don't think they got the stops when it mattered, but wasn't a great defensive performance. Maryland scoring 80. I'd have to look back and check and see if they've even done that in conference play yet. I do know that Illinois' 85 against them was the most that and Maryland had allowed all season. So, I mean, yeah, it's the same formula. Nothing really changed for me. I thought it was a little bit better as a whole defensively this week. Like I thought Terrence Shannon was a ton better. He actually looked like an ace defender for a lot of the week. I thought Coleman looked a lot better as well. I didn't think he was eaten alive in either matchup. I thought he played really well on Tuesday, especially against Terrace Reed, who kind of had his way with them in the first matchup. And then, yeah, they didn't. I mean, I thought Illinois came out early against Maryland and they immediately post-trapped Julian Reese every time he touched it, which is exactly what I wanted to see. Maryland really went away from him in terms of just throwing him the ball one-on-one because they knew Illinois was going to trap, and so most of his damage came more in roll situations off of ball screen action, so I think you can live with that. As far as Jameer Young and some of their guards, yeah, the first half I was remarking, I even tweeted out, I'm like, it's abysmal how much teams just live in the paint against this team. There's no resistance on the perimeter getting into the paint. That's still matched up in this one. For the first half, I think Maryland was outscoring Illinois in the paint by like 18 points. Feels like every single game, Illinois is losing the points in the paint battle, which is it's not what you would expect on a team that has all this size and is so good from two for most of the season. So, I mean, overall, defensively, I'm not trying to say that this was completely solved all the ills on that end of the floor, but late in the game, it was nice to see. I thought certain guys looked a lot better, felt like they had kind of that bite to them on defense, but that's something that still needs to get figured out. Listen, the formula for this team it's pretty obvious. Is their offense going to be better than the other team's offense? And if it is, they're going to win. I don't know if we're ever going to get to a point where this team is going to win a game defensively, but I think the encouraging thing right now is that it doesn't seem like this team is going to have a matchup that's going to slow down this offense. Because to be honest with you, coming into this Maryland game, I was a little concerned matchup-wise. I mean, you have the thing in the back of your head like, oh, it's Maryland. Illinois can't beat this team. Of course, we'll find a way to lose to Maryland again. But matchup-wise, I was a little concerned as well because I think Maryland does have some bigger, stronger guys on the perimeter. I didn't think Illinois' booty ball was going to work all that well against them. And you look up at Maryland, and they're an NIT team at best, but they were top 5 in defensive efficiency coming into yesterday's game. I think they moved down to 6th after Illinois put 85 on them. So this is a top 10 defense nationally. And I thought they did a really nice job guarding Illinois back in Champaign, which obviously Illinois missed a lot of layups in that game, which was one of the big stories. I thought they did a nice job and were just physical and stood up to Illinois' mismatches. There wasn't really a ton of mismatches to exploit, but Illinois gets 85 points in a game where I think they shot 0 for something in the second half from 3. I'm trying to pull this up. They started the game like 4 of 6 from 3
They
early.
started super hot, yeah.
And then they were 1 for their final 16. I don't know if they made a 3 in the second half. And they still put up 85 on a team that entered play, top 5 in the country defensively. Most points anyone has scored on Maryland all season long, and that's including Purdue and some of their non-conference opponents. So, yeah, this offense is a juggernaut right now. We have no concerns about that. I think the defense has a ways to go, but the formula for this team is one that, yeah, it gets a little scary when you get to bracket time and you see some of these historic numbers about how, teams that aren't top 30 defensively normally don't go on runs, but that might just be what this team is in terms of their offense going to have to show up game after game after game. Right now, they're kind of proven that they can do that, minus that late drought against Michigan State. Their offense has shown up almost every night, and that's pretty much how this team is built, and I think that's kind of what the story is going to be. Now, the key is going to be, can they get stops in those late game moments? Because at the end of the day, if you go on the road in a game like this, a lot of times, as we saw, Northwestern, Michigan State, if you can't get stops late, you're going to miss a couple shots. It's a road game and it's not going to go your way. But I thought it was encouraging at least that they found a way to get a few stops when it mattered late. Still a ways to go defensively, but yeah, as you said, offensively, there's absolutely zero to complain about with this team. It's actually has a better adjusted offensive efficiency than the '05 team, which is insanity. Insanity.
Could you imagine saying that in like October, November? Like we thought this team would be a defensive
I
juggernaut.
know it's
I
flipped.
think they're
The
so
entire profile of the team is completely flipped from what you would have thought in October, which is pretty insane. It's hard to grasp.
it's so random. Even like thinking back in October, like I don't know if Marcus Damascus is going to get the postseason like accolade recognition he deserves because he's averaging. Is he still averaging 20 in Big Ten play through like
I
14
think I
games?
think he's
Like
averaging
he's around
19.
there.
Yeah.
Could you imagine saying that in October? Like Guerrier is a starter every game. Guerrier is contributing like amazingly offensively, getting all these putback dunks, stuff like that. Harmon is great off the bench, just contributing threes, contributing hustle plays, defense. And Damask is like an all Big Ten guy. And Terrence Shannon is should be a first team All American. Like it's just crazy. It's insane that the whole style of this team has flipped completely since October. But it helps because Terrence Shannon is such like we've said it so many times. He doesn't need a play. He doesn't need a set to be run for him. It's just get the ball in transition, get two instant free throws, get a dunk, get a layup, whatever it is, and then in the half court offense, just chuck up a three and probably make it because he was shooting 40% before the suspension. So it's just crazy how good this team is offensively. And I still think Coleman Hawkins does not get nearly enough credit as he should. I think people are starting to like. I honestly think Illinois fans are getting kind of complacent with Coleman because, like, picture I don't just think back to like last year or his sophomore year, whatever you want to think of. Even the first couple games of this year, if Coleman puts up like 25-5, like he has done a couple times this season lately, I mean, there would be like parades in the streets of Champaign because he was a really inconsistent player. But this last 2 or 3 months, I would say he's been probably the most consistent player on the team for the most part in terms of defensive effort, getting rebounds, hustle plays, and then offensively just burying threes. He's starting to back some guys down when he gets the chance. Like a couple months ago, he would have a mismatch in the post and he'd kick it out or something. Like he wouldn't put his back to the basket and just go score. He's done that a couple times now, and he's still just probably the best facilitator on this team. Gets the ball in the high post, can make a play, shooting wise, can kick it out to anybody, find an open 3-point shooter. This offense is just they're working wonders, man. It's beautiful to watch. Putting up 85 points on a top 5 team in Maryland defensively, it's special on the road too. Even like the free throw shooting, Ty Rodgers makes his free throws. They miss like 3 free throws out of 30 as a team. Like that was one of our major concerns coming into the year. So it's just I don't know. It's crazy to see how much the offensive style has changed, how much the narrative around the offense has changed. I don't know. It's crazy.
32 for 36 from the free throw line against Maryland, which A, what a job knocking 32 of them down. B, 36 free throw attempts isn't it's crazy,
Getting
but
36.
this is a team that, and I know Maryland fans will probably complain about some of the whistles, but this is a team that consistently gets to the free throw line, which is another big part of the offense. Is if you can get to the foul line consistently, obviously Terrence is going to do it, but you're seeing other guys really attack closeouts hard and get to the foul line. That's easy points for you, and if you can make them, there you go. That's just elevates your offense, and yeah, that was a huge reason Illinois was able to get 85. You knew Maryland was going to be physical and try to stand up to a lot of their actions, but Illinois stood their ground and got to the foul line, and Terrence Shannon 16 free throw attempts. Just awesome stuff. That's why you get frustrated when he settles for some of those threes late in games. Like just attack, drive, you're probably going to be at the free throw line. Good things happen every time Terrence Shannon puts his head down, drives to the basket, and we saw that with his 16 free throw attempts. It's just an unstoppable force. And if you're Maryland, you got 3 guys that you just like fly at him, and all 3 of them foul him. Basically, it's like it's impossible. That was great to see. But yeah, really. I mean, in terms of offensively, I would put Illinois' top 3 players up against almost anybody else in the country, I think. Just their top 3. Like Shannon, Damask, and Hawkins. you put those three up against anyone else's top three players, I'd feel pretty good about Illinois. I know some other teams have some really good players. You look at like North Carolina's guys, UConn's guys, obviously Purdue, Edie, and Smith. I don't know if they have a third though. That's kind of my point. Um, it's just, and they all do such different things for you too. I think they just fit so well together offensively because you got Terrence, who's just a transition monster, a downhill force, a guy that's going to get to the free throw line, a guy that is going to put pressure on a defense every single time he drives the basketball. You've got a guy in Marcus Damask who, oh, by the way, you had two NBA prospects last year that entered the NBA draft waters and came back. Well, neither of those two guys getting the ball late in games because Marcus Damask is so good in those one-on-one matchups that you're actually trusting him late to create offense, and he's really good at creating his own shot. Hit some huge buckets yesterday, got hit in the face twice, and was still putting up 19 on 7 of 14 shooting. And then Coleman Hawkins is obviously so unique in the fact that he's a pick and pop five man, a guy that can facilitate, a guy that they can run offense through. He's been in single digit scoring twice since December 5th. I mean, that is just speaks to how fantastic he's been, how much he's had kind of this glow up this year from what he was. And yeah, you think about just how polarizing he's been throughout his Illinois career and how much fans have wanted more from him. And it's been frustrating to see his inconsistencies. Well, he might be the most consistent guy on the team right now because he's just in double figures with 3, 4, 5 assists, 6, 7 rebounds, a couple steals, couple blocks every single game. It seems like he's shooting the three better than he has in his entire career. He's approaching 40% from three on the season. I think he's currently at 38.5%. Which, boy, we kind of look a little dumb now saying, he just can't shoot. Let's just give it up. He can't shoot. Well, he proved us wrong there. He can definitely shoot it. That's why the NBA is going to like him. But those three guys just complement each other so well. They all have different skill sets on offense that can kind of beat different matchups. And one guy can be the focal point of one matchup because he can do one different thing. Coleman Hawkins can be the focal point of your matchup against Michigan State because that's what you see. Damask can be the focal point against one team. Terrence Shannon's always just going to put immense pressure on a team. And, yeah, those three guys that's really what it comes down to for Illinois. Obviously, you need things from your role guys, and those guys are going to be important. But if those three guys all show up on the same night, it's really hard to beat Illinois because I just don't know if there's a ton of teams in the country that could put their top three players up against Illinois' top three and say confidently that they have an advantage there. Am I crazy for saying that?
I honestly can't think of a team because you look at like obviously Terrence specializes in transition. You can say Demes specializes in like booty ball, posting up guys, low post, whatever you want to say. And then Coleman kind of does it all. But you look at all three in the big picture, they all kind of do everything. Like I guess Damask isn't really running in transition or anything like that, but like he's started to hit threes. He can play in the low paint or low post. He can get to the hoop pretty much at will at this point. Coleman has proven he can hit threes. Coleman can get to the hoop past like Coleman pump fakes and he can get past any big man he wants to and finish at the hoop. And then Terrence, great in transition, great at getting to the rim and getting fouled and still hitting threes at a pretty good rate at this point. So it's like they all have one thing they're best at probably, but at the same time they can all pretty much do everything, which just it makes them so versatile because none of them are like they're all 6'5" plus. Coleman's 6'11". Like it's not like a RJ Davis, like a 6'2" point guard, something like that. Like this big three on this team is so insanely talented, so versatile. It's just really fun to watch. Like you think back, Coleman was, I don't know if it was after the Marquette game or if it was a certain game or not, but people on Twitter were saying like, oh, Coleman is so polarizing. Like I can't wait for his time in Champaign to be done with. Just like imagine saying that now. Like he was saying he was injured, like the knee. People didn't really know is he injured? Is he just kind of playing terrible to start the year? It's pretty clear that he was
definitely hurt.
Up.
Yeah, he was definitely hurt.
100%.
As soon as he came back from it was so he played against Marquette, didn't play well.
And then he sat out a couple.
It was right after that he sat out 2 or 3 games. As soon as he's come back from that absence, he's been an all-conference performer. So he absolutely was hurt. I mean, he's been outstanding.
That's pretty much what we said. We had a podcast back then saying like you look towards the rest of the season, who was going to be the X factor, who needs to improve the most. And we said that's when we kind of wrote off Coleman 3-point wise, saying like, oh, just face it, Coleman's not going to be like a great 3-point shooter at any point this season. He's done that and more, but we did say like Coleman can be a 10 to 12 point scorer, sneak on the All Big Ten third team, can contribute really well defensively. He's done all of that and more. It's just been an awesome senior season for Coleman since that little injury early in the season. And then Terrence obviously had the situation that had to sit out for about a month. He's really been great the past couple weeks, though. I think there's no question he's back fully, putting up like 30 points per game the last 3 or 4 games, I believe. And then Damask has just been, I think, since the Tennessee game where he kind of got bothered defensively by that really good team, he's just been elite, like putting up 20 a game in Big Ten play, just getting to the hoop at will. Really hasn't had too many bad or even mediocre games. So yeah, I really like your point. This big three, I think you could put him up with any team in the country's big three, and they come out on top, honestly.
Jake Diebler, baby, the Ohio State Buckeyes. First game as interim coach, and they're leading Purdue by 9 with 11 minutes to go. Chris Holtmann fired this week, by the way. Kind of crazy that happened mid-season, but
Yeah.
they're rallying. It seems like every time a coach gets fired mid-season, that first game after, the team plays the game of their life every time. They're like so
And then
excited.
Ohio State will go winless after this
Yeah,
win.
yeah, they'll win one more time the rest of the year. But hey, you beat Purdue. That's all we need you to do, Buckeyes. Anyway, yeah, no, Terrence Shannon especially. I mean, it feels like it's just been glossed over the fact that he's averaging 29 a game in his last three. Like it's been a quiet 29 from him, although Tuesday night definitely wasn't quiet. He had 31 points, and Juwan Howard was saying, "You're welcome" to Illinois after the game. So that one was a little
Oh my
less
God.
quiet. That was 31 points on 11 of 15 shooting, made 5 threes Tuesday night. That was all American first team level play. And then even on 2 games where he's not maybe his most efficient from the field and the three isn't working for him, at Michigan State, at Maryland, he combines for 29 free throw attempts in those 2 games, gets to 26 and 27 points in each one. So yeah, he's back. I mean, he's back. That efficiency could still get there. Feels like the 3-point shot hasn't fully. I mean, he had a great night on Tuesday, which is great to see. Was 1 for 7 against Maryland. I'd love to see him not settle for quite as many of those. We know he can make the ones that are in rhythm, the ones that he gets naturally in the flow of the offense, hit like 4 of his 5 just from the corner off kickouts on Tuesday night. And then it seems like against Maryland, it was more of those crossover, isolation, pull-up shots that he makes some of them, but you just want to see him attack on some of those. If he takes 2, 3 threes a game, makes 1 or 2 of them, and then can just attack and get to the foul line 15 times, that's the Terrence Shannon I think Illinois needs. So it's been great. I mean, yeah, there's no question about it. As much as I think Coleman Hawkins and Damask are X factors and huge and important and bring different things to Illinois, their ceiling relies on Terrence Shannon being their best player, in my opinion, because he can be that, and he's the only guy that can consistently give you 27, even on nights where he only makes 6 shots against Maryland. 6 made shots, 1 3, but 27. Like no one else on this team sniffing that. So that's why Terrence Shannon's got to be your best player down the stretch of the year, and I think he has been the last 3 games, which is really just exactly what you needed to see. That feels like that slump and that questioning whether he's ever going to get back to the same guy he was back against Missouri and Florida Atlantic, that can be put to rest because I think he's right about there. Obviously can still get better. Defensively, I think is where he needs to focus most on. We know he's going to get his points. If he can play the type of defense he played down the stretch against Jameer Young, navigating screens and staying in front of him, that's where he can really get back to, okay, this is the best two-way player in the country, but can't complain about 28.3 a game the last 3.
Yeah, no question. I don't know how much more there is to talk about the Maryland game. I don't think there's much to say about Michigan either. Like you think back to the Michigan game and like I could be totally over exaggerating, but I think half their field goals were dunks.
Yeah.
And they also missed like Terrace Reed missed about 10 layups within 2 feet of the hoop. So I don't know, but I think the defensive performance after the first 10, 12 minutes or so was much improved in the Michigan game because honestly that program just they go down and they fall apart. They throw in the towel unless they're up at halftime, and which they still lose after that. So just a terrible team. You win by 30, 40, whatever they did win by. good game all around. But
Needed to do that though. That was good to see that you just came out at home and dominated a terrible team. Like that hadn't happened. So good to see that.
yeah, got your Max Williams points. Yeah,
Yeah, I did. I got my AJ Red and Max Williams minutes. Max Williams offensive glass, 2 free throws. Atta boy. I mean
it's a junkyard dog right there.
that's the nail in the coffin in the Juwan Howard era is Max Williams getting an offensive rebound on your team, right? Like that's just got to be the
I would think so. Yeah.
was that the last Brad Underwood Juwan Howard meeting? Do you think or no?
Do you think he's back next year? I mean, there's no chance we
I've
put him
heard
in the
that
Big Ten tournament.
no, there's no chance. I don't know. I've heard some people say he might be back for one more year, which I'd be livid if I was a Michigan fan. I know they probably don't care because they're like, well, we won in
Yeah.
football, but God, what are they 8-18 right now? Ah, man, that
They've
is.
lost or they've won like 2 of their last 15 or something like that. So I don't know.
I hope we get him for one more year because it'd be nice to get a nice round 10-0 for Brad against him. That'd be a nice way to end it off.
That would be.
As you guys know by now, we've partnered with BetMGM this season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 as we all get ready for the best month of the year, March Madness. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use the bonus code FIELD150 and you will get $150 in free bets on your first wager with BetMGM, regardless of whether or not you win that first bet. Here's the best part. All you need to do is deposit and bet $5 of your hard-earned money. This is how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD150. That's FIELD150. Deposit at least $5 and place your first wager on any game. You will receive up to $150 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your bet. Just make sure you use that bonus code FIELD150 when you sign up. And remember, BetMGM is now available in one wallet in select states. As a New Jersey resident, this is super convenient when I have to go cover games in Philly or New York, which happens quite a bit. When you cross state borders, you just log into your existing account and fire away. You don't have to create a new account in each state. It's easy, it's simple, and it's clean. And most importantly, we have some fun stuff coming up for the conference tournaments and for the NCAA tournament. Bet insurance tokens, college hoops odds boost, and my personal favorite, a nice little parlay boost here and there. So download the BetMGM app and sign up today. Big news, guys. I am thrilled to announce that we have partnered with Autograph, a company founded by the GOAT himself, Tom Brady. The Autograph fandom app gives you access to the best college hoops content, fan contests, and exclusive rewards like discounted tickets, all for doing the things that diehard fans like you already do, following your favorite team in the news and listening to podcasts just like this one. When Tom, and yes, I am calling him Tom, we're on a first name basis these days, co-founded Autograph, he had one mission in mind: change the fan experience for the better. It works like this. You get all of your college hoops content you want in one place. You get articles from your favorite writers, pods from your favorite hosts, contests from your favorite creators, all on the feeds and the sites that you already enjoy. But instead of having to go to all these different places, it all comes to you in one spot, the Autograph fandom app. But here's the best part. The more content that you consume, the higher you rank in the app. As you consider the level up in status on the app, you can unlock unique rewards curated exclusively for you. So download the free Autograph app in the App Store and use the referral code F68, that's F68, or tap in at the link in the description below or in the podcast app of your choosing to start earning points for doing something as normal as listening to this very podcast.
Yeah. What do you want to go? What do you want to talk about now? Big Ten? I see Purdue trails by 5 right now.
Yeah, right as I complimented Diebler and Ohio State, they've been on like a 4-minute scoring drought. So my fault.
Yeah.
Bruce Thornton knocks a jumper down. All right. Let's talk about the reveal, like just NCAA tournament picture.
Oh, yeah.
Because that happened yesterday as well. The selection committee releases their kind of top 16 seed preview in mid-February, right about this time every year. Illinois makes an appearance as the number 15 overall seed in the bracket, which is a 4 seed, the second to last 4 seed technically in the reveal. The region doesn't matter. That's not going to be the same. The seed is the only thing that really matters. You can kind of talk about a couple of the other teams that were around them, but 4 seed's about where they've been for the last month or so. They've just kind of been right around that range. I think it's fair to say that they probably could move up to a 3 seed, definitely could fall to a 5 or a 6 if you lose some of these Big Ten games that you don't, that wouldn't look good on a resume. But what do you kind of make of that? I know we've talked a little bit about how we didn't. Based on Illinois' resume, it feels kind of surprising that they're a 4 seed. Feels like there's a lot still to be desired on this Illinois resume. They don't really have that marquee win. Or maybe their best win of the season, Florida Atlantic, just got boat raced today against South Florida. They're not even going to win the American Conference. So it's not the best resume out there. But Illinois, for the most part now, has avoided those bad losses. Maryland's the only quad 2 or 3 loss on the resume, and it's either going to be 2 or 3 depending on where Maryland is. They've taken care of who they should have. Obviously, they only have 6 total losses on the season. What was your reaction to seeing Illinois on the 4 line yesterday?
I have no complaints about it. I think given the resume, I think the metrics are what's really carrying the
That's a great point. Yep.
Overall resume right now. But in terms of resume, talking about like wins and losses, games and quads, stuff like that, it doesn't look great. Besides, they do have 4 quad 1 wins, I believe. I got to pull up their resume right now, actually.
Yeah, it's 4 as of today because you got Florida Atlantic, Michigan State, and then Ohio State and Maryland road games are right on the edge. Ohio State's 72. Now, if they hold on here, that'll help matters. Maryland's 75 exactly. That one is going to be right down to the wire. It's going to be, they'll be 74 one morning and then 77 the next morning. So that should be an interesting one.
Yeah, so the Maryland's big for keeping it a quad 1 win instead of quad 2 win. And then, of course, quad 3 loss versus quad 2 loss is actually a massive difference. You want to keep it as a quad 2. But they do have 4 quad 1 wins. You just mentioned a couple of them kind of lower tier. You don't have a quad 1A win, which is like 1-15 at home. I think 1-30 on the road. You're going to have 2 chances at that, unless Wisconsin just totally falls off a cliff. If you beat them on the road, that's probably a quad 1A win. And of course, if you beat Purdue at home, guaranteed quad 1A win would be the best win on your resume by a mile at this point. So Illinois still has quad 1 at Iowa, I believe. I don't know if the quad 1 or if the game against Iowa at home is quad 1. It
Not
might
quite.
be.
No, they're in the 50s, I think.
Oh, no, yeah, that's top 30. Never mind. But yeah, there's not really any chances for terrible losses left. I know Minnesota, Penn State, kind of on the border of that. But you just really want to avoid a bad loss at this point and really try to gather up 1 or 2 quad 1A wins with Purdue and Wisconsin, and then potentially with the Big Ten tournament. But in my opinion, I did a bracketology I think last week. So my opinion really doesn't matter, but just for the sake of this podcast, I had Illinois as a 4 seed. And some of the teams around them, like you look at Wisconsin falling off a cliff, Illinois is ahead of them in this net reveal. I think South Carolina's by us. They just lost 2 games this week. Clemson just lost. I think they're right around the 5 seed line. Auburn, I think, just lost. Yeah, Auburn just lost to Kentucky.
They lost at home to Kentucky.
So even though Illinois doesn't have the marquee win that some of these teams have, the losses still matter, and they might matter not more, but like to the same extent, because losing a quad 3 game in like the SEC or something, it's massive at this point in the season, late February, early March. If Illinois avoids that type of loss and other teams continue to rack up losses like that, like Wisconsin has, Clemson just had a bad loss. I'm blanking on some other teams, but Illinois will stay on that 4 seed line. And I think with a marquee win, they have potential to get to a 3. I think a 2 seed would definitely be stretching it at this point, unless maybe you beat Purdue twice and just win out.
You'd have to win out, probably.
Exactly, yeah. But with Purdue and Wisconsin still left in the regular season and a potential for 3 Big Ten tournament games on a neutral site, the resume could still be boosted pretty well at this point. And of course, you could still fall to a 5-6 seed potentially. But I think Illinois is in a really good spot at that 4 line. The metrics, like the net rating, Ken Palm really likes this. What else is there? I think BP. No, what is it?
as
uh,
BPI, right? Or
BPI, yeah,
KPI?
BPI, something like that. And then strength of schedule is pretty solid playing in the Big Ten. You did honestly the non-con strength of schedule kind of confuses me because you play Marquette, you play Tennessee, FAU's still pretty high, and then the non-con strength of schedule isn't. It's pretty low compared to some of these other teams, which is interesting.
I think it's
But
probably because they
overall,
played a bunch of 300s teams in those other games is probably
yeah, I
why.
guess that's true. But yeah, overall, that's kind of nitpicking in terms of the resume. Overall, they look really good metrics wise. And even without the quad 1A win at this point, you still have 4 quad 1 wins, which is great. You still have 4 or 5 in quad 2, which is still better than a lot of teams. So I think Illinois is in a really good spot at this point, and I was happy to see them in the top 16 for sure. I think they should have been. I saw some people earlier in the week saying they're right on the cut line, like 17 or 18. But as we've seen in the past, I know some guys were tweeting like stats related to if you're in the first reveal in the top 16, you have like an 80% chance of staying in the top 16 come tournament time, which is kind of skewed, obviously, because 1 seeds probably aren't going to drop 5 seed lines in 3 weeks. But still, it's encouraging for sure. You just look at where this team and where this program is compared to 5, 6 years ago. The difference is insane. Like, imagine telling an Illinois fan 5, 6 years ago, you get a 1 seed in 2021, 4 seed the next year, struggle a bit. The next year, still get 8 or 9 seed, whatever we were. And then guess what? Next year, bring in some transfers, you're right back on a 4 seed line, almost locked in to a top 16, top 20 team come tournament time. So it's great time to be an Illinois fan for sure.
Yeah, I mean they've been in this February bracket top 16 revealed 3 of the last 4 seasons. They were a 3 seed in the reveal 2 years ago, 2 seed in the reveal 3 years ago. Obviously they moved up to a 1 by the time the tournament came around because they had all those marquee games like right at the end of the season. Now they're a 4 seed. Yeah, I mean it's right where you want to be. I think in an ideal world you get up to that 3 line by the tournament. That's going to be important because you avoid the 1 seed in that little quadrant of the bracket in that Sweet 16 matchup, not to look too far ahead, but then also you get a 6 seed as opposed to a 5, who's probably going to be a little lower on the scale. And also that usually there's kind of a drop off between the 12-13 mid-majors and the 14-15 mid-majors. Probably less prone to an upset getting a 14 seed. Usually those teams are overmatched. You don't see quite as many 14-3 upsets as you do 13-4 and 12-5. So that
14s are way worse than 13s and 12s. It's like a massive difference that a lot of people don't realize.
yeah, there's a big conference drop off right at that level. So that's where Illinois needs to have their focus on, in my opinion, is get to that 3 line by the tournament. And I think it's a pretty clear path to do that. I honestly think you probably could get there without beating Purdue. If you win every other game and you get to the semis or finals of the Big Ten tournament. But if you beat Purdue, I think that's the one you got to circle. And maybe, still under 5 minutes to go in this one, maybe that means a little bit more than just a resume win. But just at the very least, it's going to be a massively important game for Illinois' resume because you get that team at home. Really haven't had hardly any marquee opportunities at home other than Marquette, which was the second week of the season. Other than that, it's just been you got to take care of this home game. You got to take care of this home game. Michigan State was the only other one that meant anything to your resume, basically. It was the only other quad 1 home game that you've played so far. So that's going to be a huge one to welcome Purdue in. Top 2 team in the net, if I'm not mistaken. I think they're number 2 in the net. Obviously, the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. That's the biggest game. If you win that one, I think you feel pretty darn good about getting to that 3 line, assuming you avoid losing 3 more times other than that. Obviously, at Wisconsin would be there as well, but I think that's a little bit tougher ask going on the road. You shouldn't expect to win those road games. You should expect to win every home game if you're Illinois. Absolutely should. So I think that Purdue game is going to be huge. Big Ten tournament. It's always kind of interesting how I can never tell how much the conference tournaments are factored into. It feels like they never are. But then you have these bracketologists going on like conference championship week saying, well, this is huge. If this team does this and this and this, they'll improve their seed, and then it never happens. But I think you got to focus on the regular season. Your only like catastrophic loss would be home to Minnesota. They're 82nd in the net right now. That'd be quad 3 home loss. So just take care of that one. Everyone else is in either quad 2 or quad 1. You finish the game with 3 quad 1 games. You go 2-1 in those 3 at Wisconsin versus Purdue at Iowa. And you take care of your other 3 games at Penn State, Iowa at home, Minnesota at home. I think you're on the 3 line pretty easily on the 3 line, especially seeing some of these other teams. I think that there's going to be some tougher games for a team like an Auburn or a team like an Iowa State or a team like a San Diego State. I think you can pass those teams up if you get that done, if you lose one more time in the regular season. So 3 seed is what I want for this Illinois team. 3 seed is where you need to be. Makes your path so much easier to get to the second weekend if you get a 3 seed. And hey, maybe win out and get a 2 seed. Wouldn't complain about that either, huh?
With Ohio State up 7 right now, maybe win the Big Ten. Second time
Good
in a
call,
couple
yeah.
years.
Good call. Yeah, this
sorry,
is
I'm
a
kind of watching
7-point
this
game.
game.
Yeah, it's a 7-point game with 3.5 minutes to go. Ohio State leads, and this is getting real. If Purdue were to lose this game, that means Illinois would be 1 game back hosting Purdue. So you win out and you get a share. And if Purdue loses another game, you get an outright title. If you lose 1 and Purdue loses 2, opens up the scenarios. Illinois is officially back in the race and controls their destiny for a Big Ten Conference regular season championship if Purdue loses this one. So Buckeyes need 333 to close this one out. It's probably, knowing how long college basketball games take, I don't want to extend our recording too long, so we're not going to wait for the end result. But it's looking pretty good for the Buckeyes.
It is, yeah.
Before we close it out, unless you have any other thoughts on the tournament.
Yeah, I'll go really quick here, just back to your point about. I'll preface this by saying you want to win in you want to win in the tournament. You got to beat good teams in every single round. Like it really doesn't matter what seed you are from an outside standpoint. You're going to have to beat great teams regardless of where you're seated, like what region you're in, stuff like that. But the difference between 4 seed, 3 seed, you look towards the Sweet 16. You're playing a 2 seed instead of a 1 seed. Round of 32, you're matched up with a 6 potentially instead of a 5. And then round 1, like we saw Illinois go down to the wire with Chattanooga in a 4 versus 13 matchup just 2 years ago. Like lost or down the entire game pretty much. Took a miracle to win that one. If you just take some time to look at the resumes and like quad or net sheets of some of these 13 and 14 seeds. Like you were totally right. There is a massive difference. I know this is a random point, but like it is, if you want to win tournament games, it's pretty big to look at. Like these 14 seeds are in way weaker conferences, way weaker strengths of schedule. They all have like quad 4 losses. And then the 13 seeds are like the top tier mid majors that you're looking at like from year to year, like your Colgates, your Vermonts, some of these teams that are in the tournament every year, like South Dakota State, these teams that every college basketball fan knows.
I'll tell you who Illinois is going to play if they're a 4 seed.
Akron?
The Akron Zips. John Gross is playing Illinois. If they're a 4 seed, that matchup is happening.
Yeah, so you want to get to the 3 line. But even like you look at beating Purdue in early March at home, huge resume win, could have won the Big Ten because of that. But even just for the teams, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but like that's huge for the team too. Like you beat FAU on a neutral site, but other than that, you beat a decent Michigan State team at home. You don't have too many like, oh, this team's probably better than us, but we have played the game of our lives and just came out and beat them. Like a lot of these wins that Illinois has had, Maryland, Ohio State, Michigan, these are teams you should beat, and Illinois has taken care of them for the most part. But like you're not really solidifying yourself as a top team by beating teams ranked in the 90s in KenPom and net. So just beating like a top 1, top 2, top 3 team in Purdue would be so awesome. I don't know, but like yeah, I think you get my point. Like it's so massive for so many reasons. So that would just be awesome. I know that's 3 weeks from now, looking ahead a little bit, but honestly, we're winding down in the college basketball season. Just a couple games left in Big Ten play. I think 3 at home, 3 on the road. So you got to lock in, Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, there is a broader conversation to be had there about the fact that Illinois doesn't really have that marquee win, that like we belong as a national contender win. Not again, they haven't had a ton of opportunities. I think you look back to a Marquette game 2 weeks into the season, which Coleman Hawkins was playing on one leg in a game that you led 10 minutes left and had some late game troubles. And then you go to Tennessee, not expected to win that game. That's a team that's hovering on the 1 seed line. They're currently on the 2 line. And then at Purdue, no one's winning there. They're undefeated there. At Northwestern, at Michigan State, like 2 tough road games, 2 teams that have been great at home. You had chances to win. Not saying those are acceptable losses. I think you had chances to win, but it's not like they've blown these 3-4 opportunities where they can't hang with some of the top teams. They've been in every single game this season, but they haven't gotten over the hump in terms of that. Here's this marquee, top of the resume, we can beat anybody type of win. And so I think it kind of just going off your point there, it would do a lot to beat Purdue a week before the postseason starts and be like, all right, yeah, we can make a Final Four, because if we can beat Purdue, we can beat anybody in the country. There hasn't been that type of like, here's this win that says so much about where we're at. They've missed a couple of those opportunities, so I think that would be a huge win for that reason. But to close things out, let's take a quick look ahead at this upcoming week. Illinois goes at Penn State on Wednesday night. It's actually not at their normal arena. It is a weird game at Rec Hall, which is where they play their volleyball games and some other non-revenue sports. If you're familiar with the Illinois campus, think like the equivalent to Huff Hall. I don't know why they're playing a game there, but that's where Illinois is playing. It's a smaller gym, holds like 5,000 compared to like their 17,000 main arena. So I don't know. It's kind of a weird vibe to me. Like you're playing in this weird small gym at Penn State, a team that's been kind of hanging around. You know, they haven't been an easy out for some teams so far. I think the biggest thing to watch in that game is going to be, will Kanye Clary play for Penn State? He's been in and out of the lineup recently. He's their leading scorer. A quick guard on the perimeter that is really explosive, has had a great year. That'd be a matchup that I'd have a little bit of trouble with if he were to play, but he did not play on Saturday against Nebraska. So I think that's the one that would give me a little bit of concern here. And just kind of a weird vibe of like, why the heck are we playing in a volleyball gym for this one? Is some Illinois shots gonna rim out here, and we're gonna have a tough shooting day? I don't know, but Penn State, bottom of this conference, you got to win that game regardless of where you're playing. Any thought on that one in particular against the Nittany Lions?
Do we have a reason why Kanye Clary is out? Because if he plays, he would
No
probably
idea.
cook us like Jameer Young did. I thought I saw some academic issues like Doug McDaniel. That could be totally wrong. I don't want to really put that out there, but I think if he plays, he would give us issues. Probably not to the extent that Jameer Young cooked us twice this year, but he's a really good player. Other than that, Ace Baldwin, really good defender. He's consistently been on like those midseason defensive lists for like 4 years at VCU and now at Penn State. So their guards could give us some trouble, like we've had with some other guard tandems in the Big Ten this season. Other than that, they have given teams some trouble overall. Like I think same with Minnesota. Like those 2 teams have been pretty consistently terrible the past few years in Big Ten play, but Penn State really turned up last year, and now Penn State and Minnesota giving teams a bit of trouble this year. So that will be an interesting game. I honestly didn't even know that about the backup gym we're playing in. That is really weird. I know,
Someone
like,
wants to
remember
let
that
us
Penn
know
State
why the heck that's happening. I would love to know. I just saw someone tweet that saying we're playing at Rec Hall, which holds like 6,000, home to the volleyball games or whatnot. I have no clue why that's happening. Have we got some concert at the main arena, or they just want to actually like top
trying to
15
mess with
Illinois?
us.
Top 15 Illinois coming to town. We know that our normal gym will be 3/4 empty. Let's actually try to sell out a game and make an environment. Maybe that's all it is. I have no clue, though.
How about Illinois being Maryland's Super Bowl the past few years? Selling out. Coleman Hawkins talking about the T-shirts. They're selling out the gym for us. Like,
Coleman Hawkins poses in a TikTok with the Maryland free T-shirt on. The guy's the best troll in the conference.
they were pissed about that, dude. There is outrage on Twitter about that TikTok and Coleman talking about them after the game. It feels good to get a win against Maryland, man. consistently have owned us for the past however many years. But yeah, Penn State, weird situation. Don't know if their best player is playing. You're playing in a cupboard. I don't know, like playing in a backup gym. And then who's the next game? Is it
Iowa comes to Champaign.
Iowa?
First meeting with Iowa this year. I'll tell you what,
They
Illinois
just
might
won
have
their Super
100.
Bowl.
Yeah, they did beat Wisconsin at home on Saturday, but I'll tell you what, Illinois might put up 120 points on Iowa if their offense is going to show up at home. My goodness, it's an Iowa team. It's the same formula that Iowa teams have been in the past. Now the one difference is they're not quite as good offensively. They're still pretty poor on defense. Good offensive team can light you up. Sanford, Tony Perkins. They got a freshman from Illinois, Owen Freeman, that starts for them now at the big. That's going to be a matchup to watch for sure. They get him the ball a lot, but this Iowa team has just been meh. They could beat you one night, mainly at home. They go on the road, they're pretty bad. Can't defend. I think Illinois is going to have matchups galore against them. I think it has the potential to be 100 points for this Illini team. I'll tell you that.
Yeah, if we get hot, like they've had their All-Americans randomly the past 4 years, but other than that, it's the same core of random white rotation players that can give you 20 or just completely be silent offensively and play zero defense. So I think it's kind of similar to this past week. 2 games you should win. You could get a couple not nightmares, but matchup issues with certain guys on Iowa and Penn State if they're playing, if they're hot offensively. But 2 games you should probably take care of, and will actually help your resume a little bit, and will probably hurt your resume pretty bad if you lose one or two of them. But I don't think Illinois will. I think they'll take care of business again. I think they'll go 2-0, and I think we'll be in good position leading into, I think it's Minnesota and somebody else the next week after that.
Yes, it is Minnesota. And then do we get to Wisconsin
Is
or
it
is there kind of a
Wisconsin? Yeah, it might
week?
be.
It is Wisconsin. Yeah. At Wisconsin.
Hmm.
We're getting there. We're getting to
Okay.
March. We're
Yeah,
3 weeks
that's
away.
crazy, man. Yeah, but I think we do go 2-0 this week. I don't have too much to say about these teams. They're both mediocre at best.
You're way better than both. There's no
Yeah,
question.
you are.
Yeah, it would just take a really poor performance to lose either one of these. I think now Penn State again has given some teams some trouble. They've competed, give them credit. They had to bring in like a bunch of transfers under Mike Rhodes, who's in his first year, and they've at least not been the easiest out for teams this year. But they got blown out at Nebraska, blown out at home by Michigan State here recently, and yeah, they're 100th in the net, so they'll be a quad 2 game. Iowa will be a quad 2 game. Both those games, I mean, they're better than quad 3 wins, but the losses would hurt more than the wins really help you. You just got to kind of stay alive with these, I think. And yeah, you're just much better than both. I think you should be able to score at will on either one of them. I think you're going to have a ton of great matchups across the floor on both teams. Could have 100 on Iowa the way they defend. Man, I was watching their game against Wisconsin. They won the game. They seem to score at home like most teams do, but boy, do they have some defensive troubles. Illinois should be able to exploit them on that end of the floor, and it's all about if they are red hot or not on the offensive end. Peyton Sanford can get hot, and their interior has been pretty good with Cricky from Valpo and then Owen Freeman, the freshman, but I think Illinois is just way better. That'll show itself at home. I'd be much more concerned going to Iowa City than at home, as the Ohio State Buckeyes are going to the foul line with a chance to go up 4 with 34 seconds left. Boy, this is real quick. I mean, this game's there's probably going to be 16 fouls, 4 timeouts, and this will take 28 minutes. So we're not going to stay recording forever. But if this gets closed out, Illinois can win the Big Ten. Now? It's still going to be a tough path because you still would probably have to win out. I don't know if Purdue's going to lose again outside of at Illinois. If you look at Purdue's remaining schedule here, home Rutgers, at Michigan, home Michigan State, at Illinois, home Wisconsin. Assuming they win every game at Mackey and they're not going to lose at Michigan, they're going to win out other than Illinois. So Illinois's got to win out in the regular season if they want to share the conference title, barring a huge upset against Purdue. 1 to 10 confidence meter that happens.
I just want to say home at Michigan State, home at Wisconsin. At least that's two of the
Yeah,
top four teams in the Big Ten. They're
it
not going
is.
to
I
win,
just
most likely.
Mackey Arena, man. They're just so dominant there.
Dude, when
I shouldn't
there's
write
a
them off.
foul
You're
on,
right.
yeah, but when there's a foul on Purdue at Mackey Arena, the Mackey Arena fan base, like they act like, oh my God, they act like Cam Christie just punched Zach Edey in the face or something, like just socked him in the face. And then Zach Edey steps over a dude and stares him down and just like, whatever, it's Zach Edey, man.
Here's all I ask from the Purdue fan base is if you're going to go on Twitter every single game that Illinois plays and just be all up in your feelings about how Coleman Hawkins reacts to the officials, don't have your whole entire stadium throw a collective temper tantrum every time a whistle blows. If you stop doing that, then you can complain about Coleman. Otherwise, zip it, because you're absolutely right. That's really annoying.
But back to your question, was your question like 1 to 10?
1 to 10, Illinois wins out and wins a share of the Big Ten regular season. I'm probably at a 2 still. It's just you got to go to Wisconsin, to Iowa, home Purdue. Winning all those games is going to be hard.
I'll say 2, but I think the most and having the Big Ten locked up and then going to Iowa City and choking it away in the last game.
Yeah.
Complete letdown game.
Talk about Super Bowls. If that's the situation, Iowa's season's over. They're playing for NIT
major
seeding.
Revenge on us.
Illinois comes to town. They need to win to share the conference title. My God, it's going to be like that's going to be the national championship game in Iowa City. That's going to be a tough one. That's why I'm saying it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard.
Yeah, I know.
Gives you a fighter's chance, though. You can start dreaming scenarios if Ohio State can hang on. 30 seconds left. We're not going to just sit here this will come out way after this game's over. No point in saying that, but it's looking decent for the Buckeyes. Hopefully, when this releases, Illinois will have that path available to them. Yeah, Purdue would have to lose again outside of Illinois for Illinois to have any breathing room, which, they're pretty much their only two chances that would happen are home against Michigan State, home against Wisconsin, which you are right. Those shouldn't be written off because those are two teams that can beat you. But I'm not betting against Purdue at Mackey Arena. And then obviously everything comes down to you have to beat Purdue at home, along with do some other things. But it's on the table. Illinois, just the fact that you're in the race. It's February, what's the date today? February 18th, and once again you are in the Big Ten regular season title race for the third time in the last 4 seasons. Speaks volumes about where this program is at as Purdue cuts it to 2 with 16 seconds left. Ohio State's about to get a 5-second call. They got a timeout.
Oh, you're ahead of me.
This is going to take 30 minutes. We'll wrap things up. But any last thoughts?
Even if you don't get the 1 seed, like if you don't win the Big Ten, I think at this point you kind of have number 2 locked up as a consolation prize, which is still, you can't complain. That's awesome. Yep,
and at the end of the day, Big Ten regular season titles are awesome, but this team, their focus is
Sweet 16
making that run in the NCAA tournament, which is really the one blemish on Brad Underwood's resume here at Illinois. So that's still going to be the primary focus. But fun to have a chance, fun to be dreaming up scenarios and seeing all the tweets fly around about Big Ten title scenarios. It's fun. That's all you can say about it. But that should wrap things up here on this episode of the Champagne on Ice podcast. We are going to go watch the end of this game here and see if it takes 40 minutes to complete, which it probably will. But in the meantime, why don't you drop a follow on our Twitter account at Champagne on Ice, subscribe to the Field of 68 Podcast Network YouTube channel, find us on all your podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google, anywhere else you get podcasts. We release episodes every Monday talking Illinois hoops. We're getting towards the postseason. We're going to have some fun content, and we're in the thick of things here in college basketball. It's getting fun. Make sure you're along for the ride with us. We'll be back next Monday, to break down 2 Illinois games at Penn State versus Iowa, talk some more about Big Ten title scenarios, hopefully, and get closer to the NCAA tournament in the postseason. We'll see you then. Until then, this has been the Champagne on Ice podcast. Have a